Everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Awaken. This is a special episode. We have a couple guests in the house. Well, Jason's been with us before, obviously, but we've got Dave Bennett, who is the district captain of the Ohio House District 98 of the Convention of States, and that's about all I know. I think we're here to learn about Convention of States, and Dave is going to give us some really good education today.
I will. Convention of States is part of the Article 5 of the Constitution, allowed the Congress to call for a convention to make amendments to the Constitution. And during the last 2 days of the Congress, that in 1776, a fellow named George Mason said, something wrong here. And he says that if Congress is corrupt, we have no recourse to fix things. So they made an amendment or changed the clause, the phrasing of Article 5 to include the states, so the states could call for a convention, allowing two-thirds of the states, which now is 34 states, to call for a convention to make amendments to the Constitution. This happened at the very end of the Constitution. And there was no debate about it. All the founding fathers got together and said, yeah, this has to be done. And they didn't debate it. They just passed it right away. So it is part of the Constitution. And Convention of States, which is an organization I represent, has taken upon itself to call for a Convention of States. And as I said, we need 34 states in order to have the convention. That's two-thirds. We have 15 states at the moment that have already passed the resolution. We call it the resolution because all 15 states have identical phrasing in their resolution. They want fiscal responsibility, term limits, and stop government overreach. So those 15 states, I can't name them off the top of my head, but there are 15 of them. I want, and we as COS Ohio people, want Ohio to become one of the 34 states that passes a resolution. And right now we do have a resolution that's going through the hearing process in the state legislature. It's House Joint Resolution number 1. And it has sponsors, it has supporters, and the district that I represent, Brett Hillier's district, 98, trying to convince him to support it as well. And that's where I am.
I wanted to jump in real quick, and I have it up on my phone. I do have all the states that have already passed COS resolutions. So that's Alaska and Arizona, Utah, North Dakota, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and Indiana. Yeah. So, and then like if you get on the COS website, it really explains pretty well the states that are in active legislation.
There's a map.
Yeah, there's a map. Ohio is one of the states that are in active legislation for this calendar year. So I thought that was important to throw in there.
That's good. Thank you, Jason.
Sure.
Yeah, so seeing that those three things, obviously every day when we look at our news articles and what's going on in Washington, these are things that affect us, but many people don't know that you could actually change the Constitution and put these limits on the government.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. That's one of my pet peeves, because I think we have a generation or two of people who don't understand what the Constitution says, what it's about, and how it came about. When I was in high school, I was taught civics and U.S. history. It seems we've drifted away from that. Civics is no longer taught, and history is somewhat interpreted liberally.
Yeah,
and does not allow young people to figure out or understand why this is not a democracy, a pure democracy.
Yeah, it's constitutional.
Our founding fathers realized that pure democracies create trouble and strife and, in many cases, wars.
Yeah,
because there's always a very fine line between the decision to make, and so they came up with this solution, and it's called a constitutional or a
Convention of States.
Convention of States. But we are a constitutional republic and not a pure republic, or just a democracy.
Right.
It's a constitutional republic.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know the difference.
And that gives each state the power and the authority to carry out their own governance.
Right. I think that's super important now, because we've seen, and I think you alluded to that too. You got the President of the United States coming up there finally saying, well, there's no federal solution for COVID, which is what people have been saying, since March of 2020.
Right.
So it's more important than ever now to bring that power back to the state level. So that's why Dave approached me a couple months ago. So that's why I've chosen to personally get involved. Went to a couple meetings, and we'll talk about some of those meetings later on, I think. And I think it's a really important thing to get behind. And we're hoping that it takes even more momentum than it's already got.
Yeah.
We live in a very unique country that is ruled by the rule of law and not by a dictator or a king or a queen.
Yep.
And that you had said bringing the power back to the states. I think that the reason why that statement is true is because most of the people that are running our states and most of the people in the populace don't know that the states actually have the power to regulate and rule their own areas. And so the money is what makes those lines all a little blurry, that the states receive from the feds. And so they feel like they're controlled by the feds. But I believe that what you're standing for in the Convention of States is to be able to wake up our community to understand what was really written in this unbelievably awesome document called the Constitution.
Yes, right. It's not a document that's outdated. It's not a document that's inadequate, in my opinion. It's perfect. And I think it should still be defended passionately and by force if necessary.
Well, it's amazing that people don't understand what the founding fathers really intended.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the republic.
Right.
And that means the states have the power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've surrendered power.
Sure.
One of the biggest problems why the Constitution has been interpreted the way it has been is the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court has used the Commerce Clause of the Constitution to reach in to the states and cause people to behave in a manner that never was intended. Agricultural Department, EPA, and things of that nature have extremely amount of authority, and that's because the Supreme Court has ruled that they can. So we need to address that issue with this overreach. that we talk about. And states, Ohio has their own EPA. Other states have their own that can run these programs, but the government shouldn't be telling the states what to do.
Right.
Don't you think the concentration of power in Washington has made maybe the state agencies relax because they can put the responsibility on another bigger entity than them?
Well, it's kind of pass the buck kind of thing, maybe, but it's really it's really that overreaching on the federal government's, and we don't need it.
Right.
They don't understand particular problems in Ohio or Utah,
Of course,
or Nevada. They don't understand the way the citizens of those states understand their own problems.
Sure.
And for them to be dictating to Ohio farmers what to plant, when to plant, how to plant, how much this and that or the other, it's just from Washington, D.C. is just not
right. That's what the Forefathers fled in the first place from Great Britain, because they were overtaxed. They weren't representative adequately. And that's what they went away from. And so you had people across the pond governing what was going on here. Right. That's exactly what we fought the Revolutionary War for. So, I think it's really important to. Like you said, they put that in there. They put that in there for a reason, because they saw, they're very wise people, obviously, and they saw what was coming. Power corrupts, and they knew what we were going to have to deal with.
That's the whole reason behind Article 5.
Yep.
And it ended up that some wise people at the very last couple days of before they signed the Constitution realized that they had created a problem.
Yeah.
And at the end of the Constitutional Convention, I remember a story about a woman who approached Benjamin Franklin and said, "What have you gotten us?" And he said, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we're at the place of losing a constitutional republic. We've gone pretty much to an oligarchy in the federal government. Thank goodness we have rules of law and we can hold that too, but that doesn't happen unless the people do this and stand up under the guise of the law and say, we need some representatives to have these things. I wanted to go down through the three things again. You said number one on this resolution that these states have passed and then others are about ready to pass was fiscal restraints. So it would be nice if we could have a balanced budget, right?
Yes, it certainly would. And quit printing money to pay the bills.
You see the effects of inflation right now. It's ridiculous.
When you print money to it's a form of taxation.
Right.
It turns into inflation.
Right.
And that devalues your dollar. So in effect, it's a tax.
Absolutely. What did I just read? 40% of the bills in circulation have been printed in the last 14 months.
Yeah. It's crazy.
What?
The issue becomes what I'm looking down the road is the issue becomes when all those dollars come flowing back to the U.S. because right now the world's buying up our dollars, but if they ever stop, we're in trouble.
Yeah, they're buying our debt.
Right.
Yep.
But if they ever stop and all those billions and trillions come back into the U.S., you're talking Zimbabwe dollars here.
There'd be littering in the streets. It'll be worthless.
A baby born today probably owes more tax to the government than the average person makes in a year.
Wow.
If not worse.
Wow.
It's just, and we're placing this burden on children.
Yep.
Who, when they become adults, are going to have to be faced with this.
Absolutely. And I think
tremendous
this shouldn't be a partisan issue, but it is. One thing I wanted to mention about the COS, It's a nonpartisan organization. It isn't necessarily made up of Republicans and conservatives, even though obviously most of the people involved.
We try to emphasize that.
Yeah, we try to emphasize that. So it's not a partisan action. And fiscal responsibility used to be and should be today not a partisan issue.
Right.
But I mean, you got people even on the right that just spend ridiculous amounts of money in the government. So it's strictly a Democrat issue, even though they're in my opinion, the biggest perpetrators. But the Republicans spend a bunch of money as well.
It's become obvious for me personally. I've been voting since 1960.
Yeah,
with a firm belief that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And things would get better. That's 60 years of voting.
Right.
And I think we are far worse off than when I started voting.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
So it makes me feel impotent. It makes me feel like, what good is my voting doing if people don't realize what they're doing to this country?
Yep. I think a lot of people feel like that. I think a lot of people are disenfranchised with the two-party system, with the government as a whole. The federal government has way too much power, and they're not worried about the problems and issues that we face on a state and local level at all. And in this organization, I think, fights that, which is why I'm so passionate about it.
I was going to say another reason why people feel disenfranchised with their votes is because we are being essentially governed by entities that nobody elected.
Correct. Yep.
The CDC is making policies that we all have to adhere by. I didn't vote for anybody in the CDC.
Correct.
I didn't vote for anybody at Facebook to tell me what I can and can't see as far as the news goes.
An example of what career bureaucrats can do.
Yep.
And this is what the term limit clause of the resolution is partially about. We want term limits, not just for Congress, but for career bureaucrats, for Supreme Court, for other bureaucrats that seem to be so entrenched after. A good example is Herbert Hoover. He was the FBI leader for so long, and he had so much dirt on so many people.
You mean J. Edgar Hoover?
Huh?
You mean J. Edgar Hoover?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Pardon me. He had so much dirt on so many people that everybody was afraid of him.
Yeah.
So he couldn't be taken out of office.
Right.
He had to outlive his office.
Right.
Yeah, it says the limits of members of Congress, appointed federal judges, including the Supreme Court justices, and for more than 4,000 federal agency managers.
Right.
Yes.
4,000 agencies that are ruling and making decisions that are not oftentimes even voted.
So so we're all worried about every 4 years electing the president. Every 2 years doing a midterm election. And a lot of these individuals are the people that are really making policy. And these are people that are not elected officials. Nancy Pelosi comes to mind. She's an elected official, but she's been in government for 55 years or whatever. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Mitch McConnell on the Republican side, he's been in there forever. And you look at their bank accounts when they come in, and then you look at them now. I mean, these people are worth millions upon millions of dollars, and their salary is it's not modest, but I mean they're not making the president,
insider trading,
right? Well, exactly, especially in Pelosi's case, So then their policy decisions are going to come on their own interest, and they're going to come on whoever's padding their pocketbooks. I mean, we've seen that time and time again. So we just got to get these people out of here because nothing's changing. And then you have more and more people that are just being like, well, hell with it, I'm not going to vote. And and it's hard to argue to that person to go, you know what, you should still vote. I'm not sure why, but you should still vote. So I'm with you. Yeah, there's got to be a change, and I think this is a great way to do it. Among other things, holding people accountable, and this holds people accountable.
Yeah, I've become passionate about it.
Right? Yeah. If you have to worry about running for re-election over a amount of time, then you're gonna think long and hard about the people that you're supposed to be representing, whether or not you're a senator, whether or not you're, a congressman, whatever else. I mean, you're going to have to really be held accountable, or people can vote them out.
And we can see the value of this at the state level with term limits and seeing that the offices in states, at least our state, but that you can only serve so many terms. Now, some people jump the aisle and they go from the House to the Senate back to the House, and
then the governorship.
But other than that, I mean, we have some rules in place, and it does work.
Yep.
And so the last one there was restricting the power and scope of jurisdiction of the federal government. And we talked a little bit about that. I think that we can see every single day when new mandates, new guidelines come down, the overreach of the federal government.
Yeah, mandates, it's not federal law.
No.
It's not, and a lot of people don't understand that.
You know, it's amazing. As a COS person, when I see, or when something happens that the government does something, like, for example, Joe Biden does something.
He does something? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, there's people out there who react.
Yeah.
And there was one instant, I forget what it was, whether it was Second Amendment or something. He made some kind of wild, ludicrous.
Is that what he was talking about? A shotgun? He said just fire 2 shots of the shotgun, out up into the air.
But anyway,
remember that?
The number of people that signed the COS resolution, signed on to the COS resolution, flooded our computer system, the COS's computer system.
Oh, wow.
And it damn near crashed.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So we had to slow down on putting people into the system.
Yeah.
It just went crazy.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you have to do the research yourself, which is why having you on here today, I think, is so important. Because you're not going to hear about the COS on mainstream news. Oh, you're not at all. It's going to have to be a grassroots effort. It's going to have to be people like Rob and Josh that are doing this. Bringing this awesome form of media, real journalism. Because it's it's a dying breed. There's like 5 journalists in the United States now. Everybody else, it's either toe the line or they're going to blackball you. But this is how you get the information out here. And we had this great tool that's called the internet that's been taken over, and it's going to get worse. But as of right now, we still have the power to put this information out there. I mean, the big tech companies and Silicon Valley and everything else, they can limit it, kicking you off Facebook. I still don't see the posts that you guys put up, and I'm involved in these podcasts, and
you're in the Facebook group.
Yeah, I'm in the Facebook group. I had to ask Josh. I said, "Hey, that one I did a couple weeks ago, is it on?" He's like, "Dude, I put it on that day. And I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I'm in the dang thing. And I didn't see it, so I had to actually search and." It's just absolutely ridiculous. So this is important for us to get out there and talking to the people that they can't get this information anywhere else, because you're not going to see it on the 6 o'clock news. You're not going to see it on your Facebook feed. You're not going to see it in YouTube. Suggested videos. Unfortunately, yep.
COS has some enemies out there.
Yeah. Let's talk about that real quick. I find that interesting.
George Soros.
Wow. Not Soros.
For one, is really trying to slow us down.
Yeah.
Disrupt us.
I wonder why that is.
He doesn't want things to change because it rocks his ship.
Yeah.
So
that guy's an evil.
But there's
evil man.
There's other organizations out there that are chomping at the bit, trying to get us.
Right. Let's talk real quick. I didn't mean to interrupt you guys. I know, Rob, if you have a point, tell us real quick about some of the opposition with the pro-Second Amendment people. Everybody in this room is pro-Second Amendment. But when you told me that, I was very interested. I couldn't believe it.
One of the issues of the Second Amendment is that they have their own group of followers.
Sure.
Some of the Second Amendment people are against COS, and their logic is almost impossible to figure out.
Right.
Because they say that there'll be a runaway convention, And at the runaway convention, they'll put forth resolutions and amendments that will take away gun rights. Well, there's no way that that's going to happen.
Right.
First of all, you look at the process itself. It takes the 34 states to call for the convention of states.
Right.
They pick their delegates to go to the state convention.
Right.
They pick as many as they like. Most states, so far of the 15 that have already done so, is 2 to 4 or 5 delegates. They don't have an overwhelming number of delegates sent. But some states, in particular, Indiana, they'll be choosing their delegates, but they'll send them to the convention. And at the convention, if they start stepping outside
They're
the
deviating from those three topics.
three resolutions that we've all mentioned,
Yep.
if they step outside of those 3 resolutions, they will be recalled.
Yeah, but under penalty of law, too.
Yes, they can be recalled, and it's a 3rd-degree felony.
Right. Right.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah.
So if they get outside of the fiscal responsibility, term limits, government overreach,
They can go to jail.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so I think you might have some people that are almost like plants. My opinion of is like maybe there's people that are like trying to spin the pro 2A people, which, like I said, again, everybody in this table, everybody in this room is strongly pro Second Amendment. I know that. I think they're trying to get people that, well, you can't be for the COS if you're pro Second Amendment.
The whole idea behind that idea that there will be a runaway convention doesn't follow logic.
There's no narrative. There's no logic behind that at all.
And they can't call for amendment.
Right.
It doesn't match that.
Right. Has to
resolution.
Be those, it has to match those 3.
But they are so adamant about the runaway convention, and they don't seem to realize that it's almost a statistical impossibility for
that to happen.
34 states after the convention, and all 50 states get together, that they're going to have anything outside of those 3 agenda resolutions. And at the convention, when they reach a majority of people who supports one or another of the amendments, it gets sent back to the states. That is, 26 states say that we want term limits.
Right.
It will go back to the states, and the state legislators and the state residents will be the people who decide on that resolution in that particular state.
Right.
And it'll be done state by state by state.
Wow.
Until there have to be 38 states that pass it in order to make it an amendment.
Right. So that there's no way that would happen.
How would you get?
Yeah. Right.
How would you get 38 states to overrule the Second Amendment?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Well, so this is why education is so important.
Yep.
I love the founding. I've studied it. I understand a lot about it. But when it came down to having a convention of states, when it was brought up to me years ago, I was like, I don't want to open up the Constitution for any nonsense.
Yeah.
And so now today, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, now I'm all in. But before that, I was like, you know what? I don't want to open this thing up. This was a document that is good. It's lasted for a couple hundred years, and why would we want to change it? But now that I know the limitations on it, amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Well, it can't happen. A runaway convention.
It seems like they knew ahead, like how smart these founders
absolutely.
were. That
there's a book, Article 5 Law. It's Nettleson. I believe it's Robert Nettleson has written a book. It's 100 pages to 150 pages long, but he is a constitutional attorney from Montana, and he's written this little short book to explain how the law that's behind Article 5 does not allow for a runaway.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like what you just said, Rob, about, you don't want to, you were under the impression we might open the Constitution to nonsense, but they already had this figured out that it's not going to be open to nonsense. It's going to be, these are the three things that could cripple
that is
what's going on in America.
Mark Meckler, who is CEO of a convention of states, has made these resolutions all identical.
Right. Right.
If we had a hodgepodge mixture of resolutions, it wouldn't work. All 15 states so far, and Ohio's resolution is just like the other 15 states.
Yeah, awesome. I wanted to say real quick and talk, like if you get on the COS website, there's a plethora of heavy hitters on here that have quotes basically saying that, like, Rob, they're all in now. They're into it. Just a couple of them that I grabbed, Alan West, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, big name in the Liberty Movement, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, James O'Keefe, that guy, I don't know if there's anybody more important than him right now.
Exactly.
James O'Keefe said, "I've dedicated my life to exposing the lies, criminal acts, and unethical practices committed by the deep state in Washington, D.C. I am under no illusion that these in D.C. will ever voluntarily give up their power. That's why I'm proud to stand with my good friend Mark Meckler and endorse the Convention of States project. Calling an Article 5 Convention of States will restore liberty and bring power back to the people where it belongs." That's huge. And then going to this is my guy, Senator Rand Paul, who in my opinion is pretty much one of the best we have in Washington. Rand Paul said, "Years and years of abuse and overreach by the judicial, legislative, and executive branches of the federal government have obliterated and..." Gosh, I can't even pronounce that word. Brand's a lot smarter than me. Obliterated the powers and established by our founders and made a mockery of the 10th Amendment rights granted by the states and the people. That's why I support the Convention of States project to restore original constitutional limits on federal power by calling the limited convention to purpose amendments to rein in our out-of-control federal government. So these guys are in. They get it. I mean, these are people that see it from the inside out, and they're involved in government in whatever way. And then James O'Keefe, I mean, the dude's made a career on exposing hypocrisy and and media bias. So these guys are behind it. And that's pretty much all I needed to hear to put myself involved to get a little bit more passionate and find out about what these guys are about. And like you guys just said now, as soon as I read, I'm like, wow, this is a no-brainer. We got to get this going. We got to get behind this.
Yeah, and so many people probably watching are thinking, okay, so now I understand it can't be a runaway if you believe that narrative or you didn't know anything about it. What do I do sitting at home watching this video? Anyone who's watching right now, what do I do if I'm in Seattle, Washington, if I'm, in a state that hasn't passed this already, what can I do? And even in states that have passed it, you need to get on and do it. But
you got to sign
there are organizations in every state.
Yeah, you got to sign the.
What you have to do?
What's it called? What's the
word? Get on our website, conventionofstates.com, and go to the website, and you'll see a place where you can sign a petition.
Yeah, that's the word.
Not really exactly a petition, as you might imagine. It is support for your state to pass the resolution that we've been talking about, the three-pronged resolution of term limits, fiscal responsibility, and overreach. Those three things, each state has legislators that will support this movement. And you go to your COS, you can also go to cosaction.com and sign the petition. But there's two ways to sign the petition. Is that go onto the internet and get the cosaction.com, and you can sign the petition.
It looks like on the pamphlet here, there's also a QR code that takes you right to that.
Yes.
So that's pretty awesome too. It takes you right to that. But I believe that this is the first step. But I believe, and we haven't talked about any of this before. I just walked in, but I think the second step is that you, as a Convention of States representative for the organization, need our help in other ways too. And I think that is by contacting our representatives in our state.
Yes.
And saying, we need you to sign on and be a supporter of this bill that's already in Columbus.
What happens when you sign the resolution, sign a note, an email gets sent to your personal House representative, your Senate representative, and you can have the ability then to call them, text them, or email them through the resolution. But when you sign it, automatically, those, in this case of us here, Brett Hillier and Jay Hottinger get notice that there's another person that signed for the petition. And they have records and a file of people who have already signed the resolution, and they are paying attention. They know that these people who have signed this are their voters because we asked for their address, phone number, so that we can tell their representatives that these are your voters that want you to do this.
And my challenge is to everyone watching that you not only go there and have that email sent to them, but that you pick up the phone and you call them, because we know, at least in Ohio, I mean, I've talked to our representatives, that they don't get many phone calls. Most of their job is calling others to raise more money to get reelected.
Right.
Now, what we need to do is turn that phone call around and say, no, yeah, I signed that. I'm glad they sent you the email. I'll send you an email every week until you do this. And I'm going to call you every week until this happens. And I can guarantee, at least in our state, if we would do that effectively as a people in Ohio, in your state, if you would do that effectively as a people, just like you, every week you go do something on your list, every month you go to the chiropractor, whatever you do that's on a schedule. If you put on the schedule that I'm going to call my representative and say, you need to sign up for the Convention of States, you need to support the bill that's already in Columbus or wherever your capital is.
We have in Ohio.
I think we would see a big difference.
We have in Ohio a website that you could go to find out where they stand on the resolution.
Oh, yes. You can kind of see everybody. Okay.
So
that's awesome. Yeah. So if we're going to save the Republic, which is what we're talking about, when she asked Benjamin Franklin, what did you give us? He said, a Republic, madam, if you can keep it. I think that this is the action of keeping it. Yep. And this is the action of saving this country from nonsense. Convention of States, of course. But even after you do all this, I think that it's imperative that everybody watching, wherever you are, that you become active in your government. You become active by calling your representative, take your representative out for coffee, discuss things that are going on that they need to be in support of, and get other people to do it.
That has been a big problem with people.
Yeah.
They've gotten a bit lethargic about it.
I just want to complain on Facebook.
And I like to say to people, we, the people, can get this done. That's who will get it done. We, the people.
Yeah, the first three words, they still stand bold in my mind. Yes. We, the people. It's where the power should hold and where it should stand. And if we're not going to stand for it, they're definitely not going to correct themselves.
No.
And so it's time to stand. It's time to make phone calls. It's time to sign up. I would love to see a few thousand new signups on your website.
I hope so.
From this episode, and more representatives all around the country getting bombarded with action steps by their constituents. So thank you so much for the information and for coming on.
Well, yeah, thanks, Dave.
Thank you for having me. I don't get this kind of opportunity every day.
Yeah, I think that was huge to talk about the truth, the reality of Convention of States, and to address some of the misconceptions
Yeah,
and to debunk some of those things that I feel like a lot of the, dare I say, misinformation is out there on purpose to prevent people from understanding the truth about a lot of things.
We don't get an honest break from the news media.
No. Why would you?
No.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Was there anything else about Convention of States that you wanted to address while we're here? Or did you think you covered most of it?
Probably.
Why don't you talk real quick about the meetings here locally in Tuscaloosa?
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
I do on Saturdays, not every Saturday, but I travel a lot. So that's one of my problems with having meetings. But I try to have meetings on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock at the Daily Grind in New Philadelphia. I will be having a meeting this coming January the 15th, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at the Daily Grind. So I invite anyone that is interested in this process to come and participate. I started this with a group of volunteers. People.
Rob's using the QR code.
I'm using the QR code and signing up, and I forgot my volume was on. The video automatically started. So sorry about that.
But anyway, we discuss just sort of like this. We did it at this table.
It's kind of like a round table meeting.
Yeah. And I start the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance, a short prayer, and we go from there. And I have a great group of followers. I have 80 some odd people who have signed the petition as volunteers just in the 2 counties. I don't get all 80 at one time. I get maybe 10% of it usually. And there's over 1,200 people in Tuscarawas and Holmes County that have already signed the petition.
That's amazing. I just did. It took literally 2 minutes or less. And the video turns on, so if you're doing this, if you're doing this in a quiet place, make sure your volume's off. But it literally only took a minute.
Well, thank you for signing the petition.
Yes.
Now,
thank you for coming.
Depending on where you live, if you live in Tuscarawas County, I personally will be giving you a phone call.
Well, good. I'll save you more.
And I will be thanking you for signing the petition. And I'll be sending you an email with instructions on how to contact your state senator and your state representative.
Easy as that.
Amazing. Well, Brett's already in my phone, so he'll get a text right away. He needs to support this, and but thank you, and sorry for the interruption. But I wanted to show people how easy it was. I figured if it's a QR code, it'll go pretty quick.
Yeah,
and it
sure did.
It did. So that was amazing. So sign up, and there'll be some information on the show.
We like to say, sign up, stand up, and show up.
Right? Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a way to end.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. Jason, Dave Bennett from the Convention of States. Thank you for educating everybody. And to everybody watching, Rob, why don't you give out the insider number real quick before we wrap?
Yeah, so if you want to become an insider with the AGA network, you can text AGA to 330-619-4497. You text the AGA to that number, you'll get some questions back to be a part of our insider group, and we'll connect you with things like hats like these and other things that you can be a part of the AGA network and support freedom around the world. And we're excited that things are taking off. So thank you for all of you who are liking and sharing and connecting. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this, go ahead and smack that subscribe button and the alert so that you get those alerts from what we're doing as long as we're on YouTube. But you can find us on pretty much every other network. You can find the AGA network.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. Make sure you do the insider number because I don't know how long we're going to be on YouTube. We're on Rumble, but go to aga.network. That's the official TV network online on your smart TVs, your phones, wherever. You can watch everything we're doing, and you don't want to miss stuff like this. The truth about Convention of States. It's really great information from somebody who knows the information.
And thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming in, Dave. We appreciate it. And to everybody watching, stay tuned. We got more stuff coming. Until then, make sure you guys stay awake.